مرحبا. أهل غزة بيحتفلوا بالسنة الجديدة في المخيمات، حرفيا في الخيم مكان ما احنا موجودين، خيم فيها مئات الآلاف من النازحين اللي بيعيشوا في أسوأ الظروف. أنا براهنكم إنه ناس كثير لما نسألها شو التاريخ اليوم مش هيكونوا عارفين، فتعالوا نسألهم شو التاريخ اليوم وشو شعورهم ناحية إنه السنة هي قاعدة بتخلص والسنة الجديدة رح تبدأ وهم برا بيوتهم وتحت القتل. تعالوا نسألهم كمان شو أمنياتهم للسنة الجديدة. يلا.
اليوم الاثنين، اليوم الاثنين.
طب والتاريخ؟
12/8.
12/8.
ايه 8/12 8/12. شو تاريخ اليوم؟ بعرفش لانه يوم الاثنين.
قربت السنة تخلص، كل الأيام زي بعضها أنا بعرفش.
بعرفش.
تعرفيش التاريخ؟
والله ما أعرف شو التاريخ اليوم.
ايش امنياتك للسنة الجديدة؟
تخلص الحرب. أول إشي تخلص الحرب وأشوف أخوي المصاب. بس يرجع لي أخوي بس.
طيب الناس كلها قاعدة تحتفل برا والأطفال بالسنة والهدايا، شو إحساسك ناحية الموضوع؟
عادي كثير بسيط، بس يرجع لي أخوي حبيب وخلصنا، بديش هدايا.
أمنيتي إني أتخلص الحرب
شكرا.
وأرجع لداري.
نياتي بالسنة الجديدة، أول شيء أحكي لك مبدئياً على اللي أنا زعلانة عليه. أنا واحدة
إلى فرض وطلب، فرض وطلب يا ساتر. الآن نحن في جنوب قطاع غزة مثلا، وهذا القصف قريب من مجدة. في خنينس. كلما كنا عن قرب قادرين على طلب وقف إطلاق النار والهدنة في قطاع غزة.
Assalamu alaikum. It's December the 21st, live from Gaza. Despite another communications blackout, the 9th over the last 2.5 months, we are still trying to get the truth out to the world about what's happening here. Today, we have good news. Alhamdulillah. All the internal and external indicators are showing that we are going towards a stop to the genocide that is happening here against the people in Gaza. Look at what the political atmosphere is like outside. Inside, we are also seeing an influx of goods, an influx of aid, alhamdulillah, that is reaching the people here. There are other things as well, but not everything we know we can talk about. But good news, inshallah, over the next day or two, we should hear about a semi-permanent ceasefire to the situation here in Gaza. Now, what is your role? Please, this would not have been possible without your continuous demonstrations all around the world. Don't stop that. Don't stop lobbying your governments. Don't stop creating content on social media, liking, commenting, sharing. Don't stop donating wisely. Don't stop making your voices heard to everyone to ensure that Palestine is free, together with the rest of the free world. Soon, the borders will be open. Soon, we will work together to ensure that Gaza, Jerusalem, Palestine, and the whole world have a new system, a new divine, political, economical, and social system that provides to all and doesn't oppress the many. Stay safe. We see you, we hear you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
بابا ليه بتروحوا تسيبنا؟ ليش بتروحوا تسيبنا يا بابا؟ ليش؟
كان بيصلي في الجامع وهو طالع سير الضربة واستشهد الله يرحمه. كانت أختي برضه في نفس المكان، زوجها وابنها كانوا متضررين كثير، بس يعني مش هو توفى جوزها الله يرحمه.
ما شفت من هذا كل خير. الله يرحمه.
روحت على البيت قبل الضرب، هي كانت بتاخذ اختها على المستشفى، سابت أخته وطلعت برا الدار بسرعة. صارت الضربات تتضرب في المسجد، واجت هواية المسجد واجت فيها. الحمد لله على كل حال.
It's 5 in the morning and no one planned to be sitting here. But after Israeli soldiers break into your house with a crowbar in the middle of the night and hold you at gunpoint, what else are you gonna do besides call your entire family to come over and talk about it? Everyone jumped between stories. They talked about how Mundir Hamira, known all across Palestine for his nonviolent activism, was violently abducted by Israel. How Mundir's daughter did everything she could to stand between the heavily armed soldiers and her dad without fear. His younger brother joked that if the soldiers had just given him a second to wake up before they started beating him, they wouldn't have stood a chance. And everyone tried not to laugh when Mundir's 14-year-old son said he thought one of the soldiers had taken pity on him when he saw him pull out a knife, assuming it was to untie him. But instead, the soldier used it to slash his shirt while he was still wearing it. Everyone laughed because if they didn't, they'd cry. For Mundir and for all of occupied Palestine.
This is news from Gaza. On Thursday night, Dr. Munir El-Barsh, the Director General of Health in all of Gaza, and his entire family were targeted in an Israeli airstrike. 2 hours ago, journalist Anas Al-Sharif reported that Munir's entire family is injured, including himself, and his daughter, 13-year-old Jenna, was martyred. Resistance News Network on Telegram reports that Dr. Munir has been painstakingly yet calmly transmitting the news of the IOF's crimes to the world for 76 days now. Dr. Munir has been deliberately targeted by the IOF for his exposure of the truth throughout the war. Whether besieged in Al-Shifa hospital during its brutal invasion of November 14th, besieged in the destroyed and evacuated Indonesian hospital at the end of November, or facing US-funded IOF bullets while giving a press conference just last week. This was outside of Kamal Adwan Hospital. I've shared that video on my Telegram if you've seen it. Dr. Munir is an emblem of steadfastness, patience, and resilience. Dr. Munir refuses but to carry out his duty in service of his people. When Al-Shifa Hospital was stormed, he told the IOF, "I work as a doctor and am performing my duty. I do not cooperate with the occupation," and told reporters, "If we remain alive, we will stay in touch. And if we are martyred, we shall meet in paradise, God willing." Al-Aqsa Voice reports that it was his sister's house that was targeted, where he and the rest of his family had fled to in Jabalia camp, northern Gaza. And video from Al Jazeera, I posted this on my Telegram, URL's in my profile if you would like to see it. I can't show it on here because it would get censored, but it's Munir. He's lying injured on a stretcher. With his family. An hour after Dr. Munir's family being targeted, the Ministry of Health in Gaza reported a sniper shooting and killing of a female worker in the besieged Al-Awda hospital in northern Gaza. Those trapped inside Al-Awda hospital are in a state of terror, sniping, arrest, and torture, without water, without food, and without medicine. And shortly before that, the Ministry of Health reported that hundreds of people die as a result of the lack of health services in Al-Shifa Medical Complex and the hospitals in northern Gaza being out of service. Because they're all out of service and have been since the complete bulldozing of the courtyards of Kamal Adwan and lighting it on fire. There are 800,000 people in northern Gaza without any healthcare right now. Any healthcare. Shortly before Munir was targeted, he had reported to Al Jazeera Live that the occupation army extracted confessions from the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital under pressure. Likely he means torture, allegedly. And earlier on Thursday, the Palestinian Red Crescent reported that the IOF stormed the Jabalia Ambulance Center in northern Gaza, arrested all the crews and paramedics, and took them to an unknown destination. They trapped women inside and cut off all communications with the center during the raid. On Thursday morning, the Gaza Ministry of Health told Al Arabi TV that the occupation arrested more than 100 medical professionals in the strip. And by the way, Al Jazeera did report on Thursday morning that telecommunications have begun to be restored to the strip. That's after the 7th blackout since October 7th. Al-Arabi also reported shortly before that the occupation bombed the Jabalia ambulance center, burned the ambulances, and arrested those inside the center in northern Gaza Strip. And also on Thursday, Gazan writer and researcher Jamil El-Makdad said on X that there was a state of terror and panic among the patients and displaced people in Al-Amal hospital as the Israeli occupation forces were bombing the vicinity of it. That's a building for the Red Crescent. See, the building in the north in Jabalia was getting attacked. The Red Crescent's building, the emergency services and ambulances, and also in Khan Yunis, which is in the south, the second southmost district. There's Rafah and then there's Khan Yunis. So all over the ambulances, it's not just the hospitals that are being attacked, it's also even the centers for the ambulances and the paramedics. There was shrapnel flying on the building. Make sure to follow me on Telegram for more current updates, as I'm not always posting videos every day currently. Looks like there's a little trouble in paradise. Israeli soldier, as Al Jazeera reports, says, "I urinate on myself for fear of what I saw in Gaza." Let's roll the tape. So he says, "You see this woman?" And he's talking about the paramedic. "I almost killed her with my 2 hands because I was having panic attacks from the horrors that I saw there. I returned from there with a disability, and I started urinating on myself due to the severity of the disturbances, even after leaving the hospital. And I have psychological problems. I cannot sleep while imagining the RPG shells flying over my head. I fought there, and I smelled corpses. With my 2 hands, I carried my wounded friend and their remains. Where were you when we were suffering? There." And he's speaking, addressing members of the government. "You talk about the soldiers who were disabled there, and the truth is that we are here in front of you. I am now restricted, and my debts to the banks exceed 800,000 shekels. The shekel is the Israeli currency. Why don't you take responsibility? Every one of you is responsible. Get us out of the garbage you put us in," he's talking about Gaza, the ground invasion, "and get my friends out of there." So how was food today? Did you
Israeli protesters have attempted to block aid trucks from entering into Gaza. They were waving Israeli flags and holding signs that were accusing the government of supporting the enemy. One sign read, "Aid to the enemy kills soldiers." The protest was arranged by 2 groups, including the Mother's March, which claims to represent the parents of Israeli soldiers committing genocide in Gaza. They are protesting against humanitarian aid getting to Palestinians in Gaza. They are attempting to block aid trucks. Think about that. IOF bulldozed a cemetery in eastern Gaza, crushing the dead. They have completely destroyed the Sheikh Shaban cemetery in eastern Gaza. They have exhumed the dead bodies and completely crushed them and demolished everything with the bulldozers. The IOF continue to besiege the Palestinian Red Crescent Ambulance Center, which is located in the Jabalia refugee camp. Only 9 out of the 36 health facilities are still partially functioning in Gaza. About 20 healthcare workers of Al-Ahli Arab Hospital were illegally detained by Israeli forces. 6 of them were released and allowed to go south. The whereabouts and conditions of the remaining 14 are unknown. The UN Human Rights Office has received allegations that the IOF took 11 unarmed Palestinian men in Gaza and executed them in front of their families. And they didn't just kill the men, they also took the women and children, and here is a account from one of the women. "Before that, they stormed our house and opened fire. I was hit with a bullet in my hand, my daughter in her head. My younger daughter was killed and my son is blind. My husband was executed in cold blood. All my other daughters suffered severe injuries, broken bones, and flesh torn open. We were all hit by bullets or shrapnel. I have been bleeding all over since 5 o'clock on Tuesday." Israeli evacuation orders were sent to the UNRWA, particularly the UNRWA evacuation sites, which currently house the displaced Palestinians. The IOF have illegally detained over 25 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank overnight. The Israeli army have flattened buildings in Bethlehem that were housing farm animals. This is from Alan Fisher reporting from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Some damage has been inflicted on the agricultural industry in an area called Kirbet at Tawil, which is very close to Bethlehem. Earlier on Thursday, 2 buildings were destroyed. Israeli army bulldozers moved in and essentially flattened them to the ground. A couple of Palestinian families were using those buildings to raise and house animals. In the last hour or so, we've heard that 14 buildings in the same place, not far from where this incident happened, have also been demolished. The Israeli army is saying that the reason they did that was that there were no permits for the buildings. We also heard a report that settlers had gone into a building where farm equipment was being held, and it was either stolen or it was destroyed. Keep in mind that this is in the occupied West Bank, not in Gaza. They are demolishing everything everywhere. The IOF are flattening everything. And the Israeli settlers are aiding them in terrorizing Palestinians. I have received comments from some of you saying that you try to look for the best in people and that you don't want to be quick to judge the Israeli people or the Israeli settlers, but it's very clear you're very new to this, because for the past 75 years, they have also been inflicting terror onto the Palestinian people. Their actions tell me everything that I need to know. Continue sharing information and keep your eyes on everything that is happening. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
In December, at least 26,612 people have been killed in Gaza. 27,137. In 2 days, this is the increase in the number of people killed by Israel in Gaza. At least 10,500 of them are children. This is all according to UN Human Rights Monitor. In 2 days, around 1,000 people have been killed in Gaza. This is so clearly the intention of Israel to murder innocent Palestinian civilians. It is so clearly the intention. Yet some of you will still defend this? 1,000 people killed in 2 days, and you're okay with that? This is the updated list in 2 days.
State of I looking to recruit now Ugandans and Tanzanians.
God forbid. God forbid. As a Tanzanian, can you just leave us alone? Can they leave us alone? Imagine, please watch this creator's video. Israel has taken workers from Kenya and Malawi, and in a similar trend to these Thai workers, is probably going to end up giving them debt and forcing them to stay there. And they want to take my people too? God forbid.
If you're wondering what the sadistic criminal Israelis did today, then look no more than this video. Just a few minutes ago, the Israelis decided to bomb an entire block in Al Rimal, which is in Gaza City. They were staying at a mosque called Palestine Mosque for a whole month. And on their way out, they decided to bomb the mosque and everything in its vicinity, so an entire residential square. This mosque is a few hundred meters away from my house. I remember that my dad and brother always used to go there for Friday prayers. They would just walk and they'd be there, so it's literally my neighborhood. And if you want to visualize it, imagine Covent Garden in London just destroyed, like the whole square, or even think of Washington Square in New York City. That's how much destruction this is.
3 Signs Israelis Losing Part 28. If I want to watch a 2-year-old misbehaved puppet lie on my screen, I can watch Pinocchio. The Washington Post today that there were never any tunnels under Al-Shifa Hospital. So I guess your obsession with tunnels, you're looking for the homeland of Netanyahu. And talking about land, the whole world voted for Palestine to have its own land. Even the OG colonizer who sold you that land has abandoned your sinking ship. And you know who ain't gonna be sinking? Spain and Australia, because they refused to participate in Sleepy Joe's Red Sea operation. Who can blame them when you have Yemeni divers putting bombs in the sea? Your port has already lost 85% of its traffic, so I don't think this is gonna make it better. But it's okay, we all know that your plan is total destruction.
We have too many, chaos agents in Israel. Some of them used to be my friends. Explain me and goal, not military, our political goal. Create a human disaster. From the chaos, we shall start again. Exactly the theology and the strategy. From the chaos, we shall survive.
Did you hear the news today? Let me tell you what happened. The IOF unalived 3 of their hostages. 3 of the Israeli hostages who are with the H group got unalived today because of the Israeli strikes. During the meeting yesterday about the negotiations about the ceasefire, Israel offered a pause for 2 weeks to a month in order to get their hostages back. So they want to offer 2 weeks or 1 month and then keep attacking the civilians of Gaza. Of course, the age group said no, and the age group required a full and permanent ceasefire and an exchange of the hostages, including all the hostages in the Israeli prisons. So they didn't get to a deal, and here we are today. Airstrikes from Israel that unalived 3 of the Israeli hostages. The age group said many times that by force they are not gonna get the hostages back, and it's just gonna lead to their death, and that's what's happening. So Israel now is unaliving Muslim children, Christian women, and Jewish hostages. Also, the US is trying to bomb the Yemenis. The Yemenis said they are not gonna stop attacking the ships until the genocide ends and the blockage ends. So just end it. Also today, the UN voted again, and this time it was 174 votes against 4 votes. 4 votes that said no to a ceasefire. Who are these 4? The US, Israel, and 2 of the US territories and islands, 2 small islands. Those 4 are controlling the world. 174 votes are not doing anything. What is the use of the UN?
The people of Israel continue to be cartoonishly evil. This time they're protesting aid trucks from getting inside Gaza. This was reported by the Times of Israel today. The army is attempting to quash a planned protest where activists hope to block trucks of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. Protesters wave Israeli flags and hold signs accusing the government of helping the enemy and harming troops. Aid to the enemy kills soldiers. Look at this. The small demonstration is organized by groups called Torat IDF, which says it aims to keep the army Jewish, and the Mother's March, which says it represents the parents of soldiers fighting in Gaza. Unbelievable. We send our soldiers to fight, and the general of the Southern Command decides to protect the Hamas trucks. Mother's March head Sima Hassan fumes in a social media post. Yeah, guys, we need to listen to Mother's March head Sima. And speaking of cartoonishly evil headlines, soundtrack to genocide inside Israel's military pop complex. Described by American music critic Anthony Fantano as tacky, militaristic cringe, the Israeli drill track, viewed more than 9.3 million times on YouTube, asks soldiers to write their grandparents' name on warheads for Gaza's children. Jesus Christ. Threatens to rain down a storm of you, Gaza, you effers, and incites Israeli units to to shoot in the chorus. While survivors in Gaza do not know where their next meal will come from, Israelis are using Charbu Darbu to soundtrack TikToks of them making sushi.
So a creator that I have tagged made me aware of this, and now I need to make you all aware of this. As of about 5 hours ago, the Palestine Red Crescent posted this. Urgent. The Palestine Red Crescent teams were arrested from inside the Jabalia Ambulance Center after it was raided by the occupation forces. They were taken to an unknown location. Women and children remain trapped inside the center. The caption goes on to say, contact with our teams at the Jabalia Ambulance Center is still cut off. We have received reports of the occupation forces raiding the center, arresting all crews and paramedics, taking them to an unknown location. Women and children remain trapped alone inside the center. Now, this is where we come in. We call on the international community to pressure the occupation forces for the immediate release of our teams and to provide protection for them. We also demand the protection and safe evacuation of women and children who are still trapped inside the center. Not only do I need y'all's help in spreading this around, but we also need to immediately start pressuring our officials. We need to start calling, texting, emailing, etc., and demand the release of the Palestine Red Crescent teams, as well as their protection, and the protection and evacuation of the women and children still trapped inside the center.
Genocide Joe and the US government are trying to label the Houthis as a terrorist organization. They have done this before. When Trump was president, in his last days of presidency, he labeled and designated the Houthis as a FTO, which means foreign terrorist organization. And this was a huge blow to the Yemenis as a whole. Also, when Biden became president, he reversed that decision, and the Houthis were no longer a terrorist organization. However, because the Houthis are defending Palestine and shooting down, their missiles, and also protecting the Red Sea, not allowing ships to go in, standing on business. Now they're trying to, again, reverse it back to them being a terrorist organization. Now, let me tell you what that means. It means that the whole of Yemen, even the regular civilians, the innocent people, will be affected badly with this decision, because no one will come to help Yemen at all. So the Yemenis in the diaspora, which are in America and all over the world, even if they want to send money to their families in Yemen, they will not be able to. No one will be able to, deal with any Yemeni in Yemen, because it will be labeled as, dealing with the terrorist, which is bad for everybody, right? Also, the UN or any organization, aid organization that wants to help the Yemeni people will not be able to. So it will be, basically, they'll be sanctioned and left alone, and that is bad for any nation to go through, especially Yemenis who need extreme help right now, right? So that's what they're trying to do. And my Yemeni friend also educated me more on what's going on, and she also has sent me resources that I'm going to tell you guys more about. This Instagram live is going on tomorrow at 12 p.m. and Jihan and Dr. Aisha, they are highly educated on what's going on in Yemen, and the whole conflict, and what would happen if Genocide Joe was to pass this decision again in labeling the Houthis as a terrorist organization, and how all of Yemen will be affected, and how they're trying to stop it. You guys go and join the live tomorrow at 12 if you can. Yeah, there's a lot of information. Also, there's a lot of misinformation going on about what's going to happen in Yemen and all of that. So it would be really good to listen to their live tomorrow. And lastly, there's a lot of organizations that want to, fake that you can help Yemen by donating to them. Don't listen to them. Aid going into Yemen is a very tricky thing, again, because they're trying to sanction them. They're trying to cut off any type of aid to Yemen. So don't just donate to any Yemeni organization to donate. This is the only trusted one that my friend recommended, and the link is in my bio if you guys want to donate and help out as much as you can. But yeah, this is the organization. I linked it on my bio. It's the only link on my bio. If you can donate anything, that would be very appreciated. But yeah, this is the information I have on Yemen. They are doing an amazing job, and may Allah bless them and increase them. However, they're doing it at the risk of them also being targeted, and not just the Houthis, but Yemen as a whole. These little kids, everybody's going to be affected, for the consequences of them standing on business, even though we greatly appreciate it. And they're the only ones doing something about this conflict. So, yeah.
In my opinion, Joe Biden and his administration are despicable human beings. The UN Security Council has delayed its vote on the resolution again, but guess what? America is happy with the new changes. What are the new changes? There are 3 new changes that are significant. Remember, the Security Council wanted a cessation in hostilities, so a complete ceasefire. America wasn't okay with that. They wanted a suspension of hostilities. Now, according to the new wording, they're calling now for creating the conditions for the cessation of hostilities. What does that even mean? The second one, in the original draft, it called for the UN monitoring mechanism, monitoring all the aid coming into Gaza. That has been taken out. Now they are just calling for a senior coordinator to be appointed by the UN Secretary General to oversee the aid coming in. Why is that such a problem? Why would you not want the UN to monitor the aid going in? As of now, the aid that has been going in has been monitored by Is Not Real. And America is having a problem with the UN monitoring it. They just want one person from the UN to oversee all that aid. Y'all, this is the third part. This is what America's okay with. There was another part of the original draft resolution that condemned the indiscriminate attacks against civilians that has been completely struck from a new draft, and they believe it's being discussed now. That's crazy. Why would you want that taken out? Because you know your aiding is not real in indiscriminately attacking civilians. Similarly, they don't want Switzerland to investigate these WAR crimes.
This is one of the main arguments I keep seeing people try to use in order to justify the current onslaught by the blue and white devils by claiming it was all fine and dandy up until Hamas decided to break that ceasefire on October the 7th. But let me be here to tell you that there was also a ceasefire in 2008, there was a ceasefire in 2011, there was a ceasefire in 2012, in 2014, in 2018, in 2021, in 2022, even in 2023 with this so-called ceasefire, Israel set a record in illegal settlement construction in the West Bank. There was also multiple Israeli settler attacks on Palestinians. There was also a ceasefire when Israelis decided to demolish Palestinian houses. There was a ceasefire when Israelis decided to fire rubber bullets at peaceful protesters and journalists. Even prior to the October 7th attack, there was a record set by Israel in unaliving Palestinian children. When they keep talking of a ceasefire, they only mean one for the Israelis. It was never meant for the Palestinians because the only violence that is justifiable is towards the oppressed.
Given that Yemen, a country that is one of the poorest in the world and is currently undergoing a civil war, is materially doing by far the most to help the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine, I think it's actually important to analyze what role capitalism plays in this entire conflict. Because you can see capitalism's moral bankruptcy when you just compare the speed of the responses to the genocide of millions of people versus a naval blockade. Because for upwards of 3 months, the people of Palestine have been experiencing the world's most televised genocide. The nations of the world are currently tied up with their own international law that is being used against them to prevent the prevention of a genocide. Because one country and its settler colony have decided that human rights don't apply to Palestine. Meanwhile, Yemen literally just copies Israel's strategy and blocks off their maritime traffic. And you've got like 7 different countries of the world pledging military support to go and stop Yemen. Literally saying that the flow of Israeli consumable goods and maintaining that flow is more pressing of an issue than Palestinian lives. And it is because fundamentally capitalism, imperialism, and settler colonialism are all tied up in one big system. There is no lines to draw between each of these systems. They are the same thing. But just because these systems are grandiose and have these powerful actors at the head of them does not mean that they're invulnerable. In fact, capitalism, imperialism, and settler colonialism are incredibly vulnerable. Palestinians and the Yemenis showcase every day that even though these big powers might call themselves the most militarily strong, they are actually some of the weakest and most cowardly forces on this planet.
I just want to remind you that the footage that you're seeing out of Gaza is not even the worst of it. The footage that you're seeing is from the south. Israel knows very well that there's documentations of things that are happening in the south. The things that we're hearing from the north are 10 times worse. There's reports of people literally bleeding to death in the streets. Reports of people putting their clothes in bread bags. And guess what? The bread bags don't have bread because the people there are starving. They are starving. It's very hard to access these people. They have their clothes in bread bags, walking around, shifting from area to area with bread bags. And a lot of these people, they don't want to leave their homes because they're saying, this is our home. We are not going to allow an occupation to bully us, to torture us into leaving our homes. So, you know, all the footage that you're seeing online of houses getting destroyed, people literally being bombed. The north is 10 times worse. And I want to remind you of this because, you know, I feel like we're losing momentum. And this is your reminder that we need to advocate for a ceasefire, not only for the sake of the people in the south who are already suffering, but also the people in the north who majority of people have no idea about. There's zero documentation of those people, and it's horrible, it's horrific, it's beyond unimaginable.
Every morning, many of us get onto Instagram to check in on Basen and make sure we hear the same 10 words.
Hi everyone, this is Basen from Gaza. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Still alive. We're still alive. Everyone, this is Basen from Gaza. We are still alive.
And while we're thankful to hear these words every single day, her mental and physical state is deteriorating right before our eyes. She has not only been displaced from her home, moving from city to city like she's being told, but she's living in a tent and sleeping on the floor, and it's taking a toll on her body. This morning, she shared with us that a few days ago while she was sitting down, she suddenly felt pain in her lower back and her legs, and she couldn't walk. She said while she got well for a couple of days, she now suffers from pain in the left thigh and lower back, and I have been unable to move for almost a day. I cannot bear the pain. Something she shared with us that we didn't know about her before is that she was actually a basketball player, and she suffered from these pains for the past 2 years, but she had a sports doctor, she went to physical therapy, and she was on medication. That same doctor that she's been working with in the last 2 years apparently was not only injured, but arrested in the Indonesian hospital, which is in the northern area of Gaza. Because of everything going on, she says, I don't have any access to the medicines and physical therapy because of the war. She has seen a doctor, and all they could say was that this is due to the cold and because she's been sleeping on the ground, and that she should take painkillers. They also told her because she's not actually injured, they can't treat her because hospitals are being bombarded with hundreds of Palestinians who are injured and in severe condition. For the painkiller they told her to take, she can't even find that at any pharmacy. And she says she can't even sit, walk, or stand, and every day the pain is increasing. I share her story to remind people that Bassam is one of over 1 million Palestinians who have been displaced and probably going through this same exact pain. Let this motivate you to continue calling and emailing your reps, and if you don't know what to say, every single morning I put a link on my Instagram stories where all you have to do is click it, put your state, put your zip code, and an email template pops up, and you just hit send, and it emails your reps for you.
Here's a list of things Israel has banned from entering Gaza from 2010, final part. Soda, juices, spices, shaving cream, cookies, candies, chips, tubs of margarine, instant coffee, and sesame paste. Israeli authorities refuse to share a comprehensive list of everything that's banned, and it changes according to their whims. Anywhere that there's oppression, one must also expect resistance. You cannot oppress people for 75 years and then claim self-defense.
Hate me for this, but we are so safe and so privileged to be living in Western countries. Children living in war-torn countries today are scared of the sound of planes because they think that the next thing you know, their houses are gonna be in rubbles. We don't have that fear. We don't have to worry about that. When we see a plane up in the sky, it's, oh look, it's a plane. It's so cute. The privilege of that alone, for you not to have an inch of worry whether or not the next day you're gonna wake up and your house is gonna be in rubbles. We are living real time in that privilege. So I hate it when people complain too much about living in a Western country. Sure, you gotta immigrate eventually, do your hijrah as a Muslim person, move to a Muslim country, but complaining every single day about, oh, I hate the West, I don't want to live in the West. You are safe in your nice air-conditioned house in the West. Think a lot every single day. You don't have to worry about food, water, shelter. So many benefits you get from here. That basic needs, basic human needs that other people of other countries can't get. So it's like, yes, Western culture and Western values don't correlate with Islam. Yes, we must eventually do our hijrah. Yes to all of the above. But let's be more grateful, okay? Let's be more grateful.
I just wanted to share this clip by The Economist, which, by the way, has been like staunchly pro-Israel in all of its posts, and it's just like, ugh. But it says that in these 2 months, only 1 hostage has been safely recovered as a result of an Israeli raid. That means that 20,000 Palestinians that have been murdered, plus, were done to save 1 person. And in that process of these raids, they killed some of their own. So I would say they saved negative amount of Israelis at this point. What can you possibly say to justify what they are doing at this point? Because it's not working. It's clearly not working. Because plot twist, it was never about saving the hostages. It never was. It never was. They just want the land because they're Zionists and that's part of their ideology. And they want the Arabs gone. They want the Palestinians gone for purely selfish reasons.
I just watched a video on BBC and I wanted to share with you the story and also how I feel. To give you a summary, this beautiful family was able to escape to Canada from Gaza.
كنت بغزة عايشة وكنت كتير مبسوطة بعدين إجت حرب.
And not only is it a heart-wrenching story, but it reminded me a lot of my mom. She survived war when she was just a teenager, and I think the pain of surviving and survivor's guilt never fully goes away. And my mom couldn't even leave the country until I was born and years later when we could move together. I think people who have any connection to war and its travesties, I would hope are advocating for a ceasefire. But this video, it is very heartwarming and I really recommend everyone watch it.
كان فيها ذهب.
Slowly but surely I'm trying to get them out of the memory that they had for the past 30 days, continuous bombing. And that's gonna take me some time for sure, until they're used that this is the normal life and what we used to live there is just not normal and no one should live it.
Okay. If the whole world is against you, maybe, just maybe, there is a reason for that. And do you know how crazy it is that you post a video like this and then 2 videos later you have, what, an unboxing? Like, just imagine Bisa and Pester or Motaz posting videos like this. Little thirst traps in between, I don't know, shopping hauls and get ready with me's. And yet claiming to be the victim. In war, you can't just clock out and do whatever you want, go home and then live your life normally, go out with your friends, go for drinks, go for dinner, dress normally. That is not something you do when you are a victim. There is no timeout. 2 million people in Gaza did not have a timeout for the last, 2 months. People are eating moldy food because they're starving. They don't have water. And yet you sit there with your weapon and act as if you are the victim. Like, what type of Black Mirror episode is this? Because this cannot be real. It's getting crazier and crazier. And we have had, IOF members literally posting thirst traps while unaliving people. Or even, vlogging unaliving people. And yet, do you see any type of Western media outlet or any big media outlet in general talking about this? No, they ignore them. Like, they ignore everything Israel has done for the last 70 plus years. Also, in your caption, you say, oh, we don't need you guys that much anyways. What would you do if the US would stop funding you? Just saying, those millions and millions and millions of US dollars. What would you do without that? We don't need you guys. Come on now. Come on. You're being funded by other powers. On the one side, you have reporters being unalived because they risk their lives to tell you what is actually going on. People losing their entire family and still standing up and filming and talking and spreading, the word. You have people who are as old as me or even younger sometimes getting gray hair because they're so stressed and they have to go through so much. And on the other side, you have people posting thirst traps with their weapons saying, oh, we don't need you guys. We don't care if the entire world is against us. We are right. Palestinian reporters get scrutinized at everything they do. Even if their voice is a bit too happy for the liking of everybody else, they're like, oh, so they aren't under that much stress. They smile from time to time. Here, they're not sobbing, they're not crying. Imagine them doing something like this. People would feast on them, and not in a good way. It is so ridiculous that you would think that people would get how bad this is, but as always, let's ignore the atrocities.
Israel can't even let the dead rest in peace. By now, I'm sure most of us know that IOF will continue to hold on to dead Palestinian prisoners' bodies until they finish up their sentence. But now Israeli forces have bulldozed a cemetery in eastern Gaza, crushing the dead. Bulldozers of the Israeli occupation forces have destroyed the Sheikh Shaban cemetery in As-Saha neighborhood in eastern Gaza. The dead have been exhumed and crushed under bulldozers. And yes, it's not the first time that the occupation forces have bulldozed cemeteries, destroying graves, exhuming dead bodies, and then mutilating them. Parts of the dead bodies, including those of children, are clearly visible around the area. Could you imagine burying your child so they can at least rest in peace? And then weeks later, their graves are destroyed, their bodies are exhumed, and they are mutilated. Their children, their dead children, are mutilated by fucking bulldozers.
The Yemenis have become a real thorn in the side of the U.S. and Israel. In addition to commandeering ships in the Red Sea and turning them into tourist destinations, cost to the U.S. for intercepting the very budget versions of drones that the Yemenis are using is costing us an arm and a leg. And Yemen has even inspired Malaysia to take similar steps. Despite all the threats against Yemen by the U.S. and Israel, and despite this formation of a coalition to basically confront the Yemenis in the Red Sea, they are adamant. They want all of the smoke. Abdul Malik al-Houthi, leader of Ansar Allah, says, if the American sends his soldiers to Yemen, let him know that, God willing, he will face something harsher than what he faced in Afghanistan and what he suffered in Vietnam. Our people have withstood 9 years in the face of great aggression. The more our people war, the stronger they become, and the more enemies attack them, the more they develop their military capabilities to confront them. Okay. But he goes on. We are not the kind who stands idly by while the enemy strikes us. If the American intends to escalate further and commit the folly of targeting our country or waging war on it, we are a people who refuse injustice, rely on Allah, and do not fear the direct American threat or aggression. We have suffered greatly from the wars waged against us by the American through its agents in the region. The most beloved thing to us, and we have always wished for since day one, is for the war to be direct between us and the American and Israeli, not through their agents. They're like, bring it here, we're done fighting with your proxies. What? In addition to all these fighting words, the Yemenis are consistently releasing some of the most hilarious stuff. So just enjoy this mashup.
Are you starting to feel numb and disillusioned? Watch this.
There's a saying that statistics are human beings with the tears dried off.
If you haven't seen that report, it's on Al Jazeera English's TikTok page, and what they're saying is, as the death toll increases, we're starting to care less and less. And the only way to combat that is to learn individual stories. So today, I want to tell you about one. This is Abdul Karim Hashash, and he was 76 years old when he was killed on October 23rd in Rafah. He was a writer, professor, collector, and he wrote extensively on Palestinian folklore and heritage. He also kept a library of dozens of rare books. This is one of his books, Fannun al-Adab wa-Tarab. It's the art of musical enchantment. One of the goals of ethnic cleansing is not just to kill the individuals, but to kill the cultural heritage that they once stood for. So killing someone like Abdul Karim Hashash is not only about killing him as the individual, it's about killing all of the knowledge that he carried with him about our folklore, about our heritage, our customs, and who we were. So if you start to feel disillusioned with all of the numbers of deaths, go to PalFest, go to We Are Not Numbers, and learn a story. Every day, try to learn about one Palestinian who has been martyred, and try to learn about those who are still alive. I also want to add, there's a lot of emphasis placed on the women and children that are lost, which is so tragic, but our men are also incredible. They are some of the most amazing fathers, brothers, and community members you will ever know. So try to learn their stories as well.
The genocide in Gaza has changed so many aspects of life, daily life, not just for me, not just for you, but on an international scale. But one thing that I was thinking today is journalism. How Motaz, Bisan, Rahma, Ghazan Girl, them documenting their own genocide, the genocide of their land, of their people, has completely changed traditional media. And I can't imagine that once this genocide is hopefully over,
that we will go back to consuming our news from BBC, from Sky News, from CNN, wherever it may be, because we've seen the extent of the propaganda, the bias. It has been so obvious that people have had to post on social media, get their information from people on the ground. And I think that's absolutely mind-blowing. For example, Google right now is working on an AI-generated news tool called Genesis. And in their mind, that would be the future. You know, AI generates the data and the nitty-gritty, boring stuff of news, and the journalist or the author gets to write the exciting scoops, whatever. But I already was cynical about that, and now I'm even more cynical. I want my news from people who are living it. I want my news from people who have researched it, where there's not bias, where I can see that they've done their homework on both sides and they're not just pushing an agenda because they're freelance or they're not powered by huge corporations and money. But yeah, just random thoughts. But I'm really intrigued to see what the future of journalism is going to look like. And I'm actually quite hopeful, because if anything, during this genocide, seeing everybody posting on social media, seeing all the journalists on the ground has given me hope. I've had more informed choice. I've had more information about the atrocities, the war crimes that the UK, US, Israel are committing than I've ever had before in wars such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. And I hope that this continues. I hope that they're not allowed to do this indiscriminately again and again, because now we actually see them for what they are, which is war criminals.
Israel is intentionally making the people in Gaza suffer. Israel is intentionally making them starve. Israel is intentionally depriving them of every basic human necessity. They are controlling the aid that's entering Gaza. They are controlling the water in Gaza. Everything is controlled and by design to make them suffer. The warplanes and drones over their head, buzzing over them 24/7. They struggle to find feminine hygiene products, to find food, to find water, to find anything, medicine at this point. Targeting hospitals to make them not seek medical treatment. They even deprive them of having a proper burial. They deprive them of even having cellular connection, to the point where they have to go to high dangerous areas to get some connection to be able to contact their loved ones and to be able to deliver the message to the rest of the world. The starvation of a civilian population is a war crime. So not only is Israel committing crime after crime, the United States is in full support of it.
Did you know there's a village in the U.S. called Palestine? A small village in Illinois is named after the historical lands of Palestine in the Middle East. It is home to just 1,233 people who say they feel safe enough to leave their doors unlocked at night. Apparently, French explorer John Lamotte named the village Palestine in 1678 because it reminded him of the land of milk and honey, an expression used to describe the abundance, prosperity, and fertility of historical Palestine. But today, America's Palestine is a far cry from its namesake, which has endured decades of Israeli aggression and occupation since 1948. But despite stark differences between the two, many see the existence of a centuries-old village named Palestine in the U.S. as evidence of the existence of Palestinian lands and people long before Israel emerged and changed the map.
The genocide and oppression happening in Palestine, Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and so many places is apocalyptic. Hospitals with no medicine, shops with no food or supplies, no water to drink, no washing, no change of clothes, a mass disabling event, disabled and elderly folks trapped, so many sick and starving, no sleep, no rest, constantly fleeing, and a hostile force omnipresent trying to eradicate at every turn. But what we, the people, can ensure is that this is the empire's apocalypse. Because empire never ends without destruction. While it falls, it tries so desperately to pull everything down with it. We've witnessed it before historically, we're witnessing it now. Enslavers, oppressors, colonizers, military, salting the earth before they leave, literally and figuratively, which it is an attempt to try to eradicate all living beings and land. It's this whole thinking of, if I don't get to have it, no one gets to have it. It's that same mindset of individualism that's destroying the planet. It's that same consumption capitalism. But now, because so many are willing to recognize finally empire for what it is, we the people can be vigilant, aware of each other, and unified as one. The sheer volume and speed with which Palestinians, Sudanese people in the DRC are getting images, messages, video out to everyone else in the world about what's happening on the ground is how we stay aware, how we bear witness, how we continue to humanize those who empire is trying to dehumanize, and how we take action. This is why it's so important to keep going. Our endurance cannot waver because we are the wave that flows together to keep going. Interdependent, interwoven. So we keep going, not only just until a ceasefire, but until we topple empire. We want to make sure that its apocalypse becomes our liberation.
If I feel this happy, you should feel this happy too. I just wanted to share with you that Hebrew 13 Channel News reported that the elite Golani Brigade has withdrawn from Gaza to reorganize their ranks. I wonder why they had to do that. Free Palestine.
I love how they keep on posting this kind of crap to validate genocide. But if you'll notice, up here in this little corner, here I'll zoom in, it says, but then you fucked up.
Oh, dude, this German media. Oh, you're gonna do that new one, right? Tell me you're gonna do it, man. I will. Shh. Matthias, my man, how's it going? Good. Yeah, we got something new for you, and listen to this because it's shocking, it's horrifying. So we found in a child's bedroom a poster of Osama bin Laden autographed with the inscription, "To my brothers at Hamas, I love you, you're so evil, God praise evil." Yeah, you're gonna run the story. Good, that's great, man. Hang on, I think we got a breaking report coming in here just now. I just got it, I'm gonna give it to you right away. So we found in a tunnel a life-size statue of Vladimir Putin with the inscription, "We love putting terror in the world." You're gonna run the story. No, that's fantastic. That's great to hear, man. You're a legend. Thank you so much once again. Thank you for standing on the right side here, and we'll let you know as soon as we have any other new breaking reports from the ground. No, I'm still not gonna say I love you.
How to react when you see a Zionist. You smile at them and hope that they give a smile back. But when they don't, you ignore them. But when they ask you, "Do you condemn Hamas?" But then you explain to them that this didn't start on the 7th of October. But the Zionist continues to slur at you, so you just ignore their face. You look away and you keep looking away. But then you remember their face, and it starts making you feel sick. You try your best not to look at them. You try to control it. Control the urge. Control the feeling. But then your breakfast comes out. You try to get back up and gain your balance, but then your lunch comes out. You think to yourself, how the hell am I going to forget their face before my dinner comes out as well?
احنا يا جماعة مع أولاد وأطفال حلوين نزحوا من تل الهوى. ومن وين؟ ومن المغراقة. ومن وين أنت؟
أنا من تل الهوى.
ومن تل الهوى. يلا أحلى باي للكاميرا. يلا في باي للكاميرا. ايوه 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 ايوه. طيب بدي اسال سؤال. بدي اسالك سؤال. مين احسن لك؟ تسافر ولا ترجع على غزة؟ ترجع على غزة، كلنا زيه صح؟ كل احترام. يلا مين ضل بيتصور؟ يجي تعال انت، تعال طلع محلى، طلع محلى، طلع. يا عيني. احنا رحنا نغير جو، قال على البحر، لقينا الحلوين هذول. ايش بدنا احلى من هيك يا جماعة؟ يلا كل احترام لك، انت احلى واحد في العالم. هيك خلينا كلهم. بديش خليها من فهم. انبسطت؟ عملت الله؟
عندنا ضيف في الخيمة.
أحلى ضيف يجي علينا من بداية الحرب.
والله يا هلا بالضيوف.
تتعلم على التصوير؟
تعلم على الكاميرا؟
هذا بنحطها على رقبتك، حط ايدك هان، احمل الكاميرا من هان، اسمع كلي مش الاكل. هات ايدك هان، يلا طلع عمو صالح.
تعال صوريني، يلا صوريني.
حط عينك ايوه.
حط عينك الكاميرا ايوه. اوه
هاي الزر. يلا طخ على عمو صالح، طخ عليه. يلا طخي.
يا سلام لك احلى من يوسف.
هي حلوه الصوره. هان على الزر هذا
احلى من يوسف الكاميرا.
يلا طلع على الكهان، افتح لك العدسه.
So what can we learn from the historical censorship of these children's drawings by Palestinian children in Gaza from Israel's 22-day-long 2008 assault on Gaza, which massacred over 1,400 Palestinians, over 350 of those being children? One important takeaway, in my opinion, is that with the power that we have here in this country to even just uplift the Palestinian narrative, even if it's just the children, with something like an art exhibit, we are absolutely a threat to the genocidal Zionist machine, which cannot exist without the death, destruction, and displacement of the Palestinian people. Everything we're doing is working, and we need to keep going. How is it working if Israel's still genociding and we're still paying for it? Well, for one, anybody who's been in this, the Palestinian liberation struggle, and I'm sure even people who are just joining, are aware of the significant advances that have been made on the ideological battleground. And seriously, that's all thanks to everybody who has been active in posting and sharing information, spreading information. Even with their heavily funded 75-year-long propaganda campaign, we have successfully overcome the lies and delusion that are being fed to people, and that is no small feat. And that has been done by those who are uplifting the Palestinian narrative. And then, of course, taking action. Boycotts, marches, protests, shutting down bridges, shutting down weapons factories. We're not asking you to do things you can't do. All you have to do is get organized, educate your communities, because no one can reach them better than you can, and keep posting. Participate, be an active participant, and influence your people to get involved and to be passionate as you are. Join organizations. There are dedicated people working really hard who are good at this. Follow their lead. Palestinian-led organizations that align themselves with Palestinian-led organizations. We can do this because we are doing it. These horrors are beyond our comprehension. No matter how many videos, images, stories you're hearing, the terror inflicted upon Palestinians by Israel that we are paying for, that we have a responsibility and the power to stop, most urgently in Gaza, most urgently today. And then we keep going, which means we've got work to do. And that's a beautiful thing. Trust me, this is what you want to be a part of in this world.
don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.